Hey ladies and gentlemen. They stare, they notice, and sometimes they envy but they can't explain why. You walk into a room, and without saying a word, the atmosphere shifts. Some call it confidence, others call it charisma. But let's get one thing clear. Attraction isn't just about looks. It's about energy, presence, substance. If you've ever felt like people are drawn to you for reasons you can't quite put into words, it might be because you possess the quiet traits of a truly attractive man. These aren't always loud or obvious, but they are powerful, and once you recognize them, you'll understand the gravity you carry. Let's dive into the 7 signs that show you're a highly attractive man. By the end, you won't just see it, you'll own it. There's something captivating about a man who doesn't demand attention but somehow gets it anyway. You've probably seen him before he walks into a room and people can't help but look. Not because he's flashy or loud, but because his energy is undeniable. That's the thing about real attractiveness. It's subtle, it's quiet, and it's rooted in presence. A truly attractive man doesn't have to try too hard. His confidence is calm, not chaotic. He stands tall, not just physically but emotionally. He holds eye contact, not to intimidate, but to connect. When he speaks, there's weight behind his words because he doesn't talk just to fill silence. He knows the power of stillness, and that's rare. That's the kind of man who draws people in without needing to perform. He doesn't walk in like he owns the room, he walks in like he's not trying to prove anything to it. And ironically, that's exactly what makes people take notice. An attractive man doesn't seek out applause because he doesn't build his worth on outside opinions. He knows that validation is fleeting, so he doesn't depend on it. While others might flex their achievements or constantly seek approval, he stays grounded in who he is, regardless of who's watching. That inner sense of value means he's not trying to impress every person he meets, he's simply being real. People feel that energy, they know he's not pretending. He doesn't post every win or chase attention online because he's not starving for recognition. Instead, he leaves impact through presence and consistency. And ironically, that makes others want to be around him more. He's not trying to fit in. He's too focused on becoming someone worth knowing. When you no longer chase being liked, and instead focus on being impactful, people will start chasing you, and not for the wrong reasons. There's something magnetic about a man who wakes up with direction. When you live for something bigger than your next distraction, it shows. A man with a sense of mission carries himself differently. He's more focused, more intentional, and less likely to waste time on meaningless things. That sense of purpose, it makes him harder to shake, harder to manipulate, and incredibly attractive. While others are trying to impress for quick wins, he's building for the long term. Purpose gives him discipline, and discipline gives him edge. He doesn't need to convince others of his worth because his daily habits already speak for it. Women especially notice this. They see a man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to pursue it. That's rare. And in a world full of confusion and distractions, clarity is captivating. People follow men who know where they're going. They don't need to ask for directions that lead. That one of the strongest indicators of true attractiveness is how you make others feel when they're around you. A confident man doesn't need to dominate a room or overpower a conversation. Instead, he listens deeply and responds with clarity. He's not in a rush to speak or to impress, he's calm and grounded. That makes people feel safe in his presence. Others don't feel judged, they feel seen. And that emotional safety is something people crave but rarely find. He's not sarcastic to prove intelligence, nor is he dismissive to feel superior. He's emotionally mature enough to handle vulnerability with strength. This kind of energy attracts genuine connection. People feel like they can be themselves around him without needing to wear masks. And that's powerful, because while physical attraction can get attention, emotional presence is what makes people stay. Being a man who provides calm instead of chaos is rare and deeply magnetic. Mystery is often misunderstood. It's not about being cold or unavailable, it's about being complete. A man who's whole on his own doesn't feel the need to reveal everything at once. He's open, but not exposed. He's expressive, but not desperate for attention. People are curious about him because he's not trying to be overly accessible. He moves with intention and doesn't give his energy to everyone. That selective energy makes him intriguing. In conversations, he leaves room for others to wonder. Not because he's playing games, but because he respects his own depth. He knows that not everyone is meant to know every layer of him. And in today's world where oversharing is common, his control stands out. Women are especially drawn to this. It's not about being unavailable, it's about being intentional. You become more attractive when people realize you don't need them to feel validated. Your mystery is not a performance. It's a reflection of inner self-worth. A man who takes care of his body, not for attention but out of self-respect, communicates something powerful without saying a word. It's not about being the biggest or the leanest, it's about consistency and self-discipline. When a man chooses to eat right, train hard, and prioritize rest, he sends a message that he values himself, and that energy is contagious. It's not about vanity, it's about vitality. You don't need to constantly show your body off to prove anything. The way you carry yourself, the way you walk, even the firmness of your handshake speaks volumes. You don't just look strong, you live strong. And that radiates. People see the difference between someone who's chasing aesthetics versus someone who's building resilience. Grooming, hygiene, posture, these small habits add up. A man who respects his body invites respect from others, because when you take care of yourself, you signal that you're capable of taking care of others too. Too many men want to be liked, and in the process they lose their edge. But a man who chooses respect over popularity stands taller. He's not interested in being agreeable if it means abandoning his values. He's kind, but not a pushover. Honest, but not harsh. He speaks truth even when it's uncomfortable, and that makes him powerful. People might not always like him, but they respect him. That kind of presence sets boundaries, not walls. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. He doesn't shift his identity based on who he's talking to, and because of that consistency, people trust him. Women are drawn to men who don't fold under pressure, who know when to walk away from situations that don't align with their principles. In a world where most chase approval, being a man of values makes you unforgettable, and the ones who truly matter will always value that. The rarest kind of strength is the ability to be alone without feeling lonely. A truly attractive man doesn't need a crowd to feel complete. He's his own source of peace. He enjoys silence. He reflects. He grows in solitude. This doesn't mean he's antisocial, it means he's selective. He doesn't chase meaningless company just to avoid himself. Instead, he uses solitude as a tool to build clarity, resilience, and purpose. That's a sign of true independence. And people feel that. When you're not desperate for attention or connection, you move with power. You don't just walk alone, you lead. Women are drawn to this kind of man because he doesn't need them to feel whole. He chooses them from a place of fullness, not emptiness. And that choice feels stronger, safer, and more genuine. When you can master the art of standing alone, you become a man no one forgets. There's something magnetic about a man who doesn't try too hard to be noticed. Yet everyone notices him. He doesn't walk into a room with arrogance or flashy energy, but with a calm presence that shifts the air. People instinctively glance his way, not because he demands attention, but because his energy speaks for itself. He doesn't have to be the loudest voice or the most animated personality. His confidence is quiet but undeniable. There's strength in his stillness, certainty in his silence. This kind of man understands that presence carries more power than performance. When he looks someone in the eye, he doesn't flinch. When he listens, he's fully present. When he speaks, he doesn't waste words. He moves through the world like a man who knows exactly who he is, and that kind of self-assurance cannot be faked. He doesn't need applause to validate his worth, because his validation is internal, deeply rooted, and unwavering. His energy announces him before he says a word, and that, more than anything, is what draws people to him over and over again. True attractiveness isn't loud. It doesn't scream for validation. A highly attractive man understands this and lives by it. He doesn't need constant approval to feel alive, because he already knows who he is when no one is watching. He doesn't decorate his life for likes, or chase attention with empty words. His worth isn't tied to recognition from strangers, and his ego doesn't live online. Instead, he lives by internal standards. He sets goals and chases them not to impress others but to fulfill himself. While others are busy trying to be seen, he's focused on being effective. He's not in the business of begging for validation. He's in the business of becoming undeniable. That quiet, self-contained energy is rare. People want to be around him not because he's putting on a show, but because he makes them feel grounded. Women are especially tuned into this energy. They're drawn not to men who seek approval, but to men who already approve of themselves, and that approval doesn't fluctuate with opinions. It's consistent, deep, and earned through integrity. When you no longer need people to like you to feel good about yourself, you become the kind of man they can't help but be intrigued by. A man with purpose is a man with power. He wakes up every day with something to pursue, something that fuels his spirit and gives his life direction. That drive seeps into everything he does. It gives him discipline, clarity, and consistency. Purpose makes him magnetic because it gives him focus. He's not easily swayed by distractions or drama. He knows what matters and what doesn't. He doesn't waste time on fleeting pleasures when there's a mission in front of him. While others chase dopamine, he chases legacy. This isn't about being perfect or robotic, it's about being intentional. People notice that kind of man. Women especially sense the depth of a man who's building something. He's not just living to exist, he's living to evolve. He prioritizes the long term over the instant. He doesn't entertain everything that comes his way because his energy is sacred. Purpose sharpens him. It filters out the noise. And that sharpness is felt in the way he walks, talks, and decides. It's incredibly attractive when a man doesn't just exist, but lives with relentless intent. Confidence is more than just a posture or a tone of voice. It's about how you make others feel. An attractive man brings calm into a room, not chaos. People feel safe around him, not judged, not pressured, not uncomfortable. He listens with his whole focus, holds eye contact without trying to dominate, and speaks without needing to win the moment. That energy is comforting. In a world where most people are desperate to be heard or validated, he offers something rare: emotional safety. He doesn't tear others down to feel big. He doesn't rely on sarcasm or superiority to stand out. He's kind, but not weak. He's understanding, but not a doormat. That balance is what makes him magnetic. Women especially feel this difference. When they're around him, they can relax into themselves. They're not being sized up, they're being seen. Confidence that builds others up instead of tearing them down is rare, and the man who possesses that kind of calm strength will always stand out. In a noisy world, he becomes a sanctuary. There's something alluring about a man who doesn't reveal everything about himself at once. He's not mysterious because he's hiding something, but because he doesn't feel the need to overshare his whole on his own. He enjoys his own company. He doesn't spill his entire story in the first hour. He speaks with purpose, shares with intention, and keeps certain parts of himself sacred. That's not withholding its self-respect. In a world obsessed with instant connection and constant updates, a man who holds back a little becomes infinitely more interesting. He doesn't post every win or narrate his every move. He leaves room for curiosity. He lets people discover him over time, and that slow reveal is powerful. Women are naturally drawn to depth, and when they sense a man has layers, he's not offering up to just anyone, they pay attention. You don't have to pretend to be mysterious. Just be complete. When you're emotionally full and spiritually grounded, you don't chase connection, you attract it, and the mystery takes care of itself. Taking care of your body is one of the most visible signs of inner discipline. A man who respects himself doesn't treat his health like an afterthought. He trains not to impress others, but to stay sharp, resilient, and strong. He eats like someone who values himself. He dresses with care, grooms with consistency, and walks with purpose. It's not about having the best physique or the perfect jawline, it's about showing that you take yourself seriously. A man who moves with intention, who walks with strength in his step and confidence in his carriage is instantly noticed. He doesn't need to advertise himself. His energy speaks through his appearance. He doesn't crave attention. He commands it, and that makes him stand out. Women notice how a man treats himself. If he's sloppy, careless, or inconsistent, it shows. But if he shows up for himself every day, even in small ways, it becomes irresistible. Taking care of your body isn't just physical, it's spiritual. It tells the world, I'm here to lead, not follow. There's a powerful difference between being liked and being respected. Many men shrink themselves to fit in. They say what others want to hear. They avoid conflict at the cost of their values. But the attractive man doesn't play that game. He's kind, yes, but not agreeable for the sake of peace. He holds his ground. He says what needs to be said. He knows that people may not always like him, but he refuses to live in fear of rejection. That kind of man earns respect. He's not here to blend in. He's here to stand out by standing firm. Women are drawn to this strength. They don't want a man who agrees with everything. They want a man with conviction. Someone who doesn't fold when pressure mounts. Someone who leads, not because he wants power, but because he lives by principles. Respect lasts, charm fades, and when you stand for something, you become unforgettable. The final and most overlooked sign of a highly attractive man is his ability to be alone, not just physically, but emotionally. He doesn't fill his time with empty people just to escape himself. He values solitude because it sharpens him. In silence, he grows, he reflects, builds clarity and recharge. He enjoys his own company, not because he's antisocial, but because he's whole. That wholeness changes everything. He doesn't chase women out of loneliness. He doesn't beg for attention out of insecurity. He chooses relationships from a place of strength, not need. Women sense this. They know when a man is with them because he wants them, not because he needs someone. That makes every interaction feel intentional. A man who can walk alone without breaking down is a man who leads from the inside out. And in a world full of codependency, that kind of independence is breathtaking. Be that man not because the world says it's attractive, but because you know in your soul it's who you were born to be. If you see yourself in these traits, don't let the world convince you to shrink. Own it, develop it, lead with it. You don't need to prove your worth, you just need to live it. And if you don't see all these signs in yourself yet, good. That means you have a map, a blueprint, a direction. Start building. Because attractive isn't something you fake, it's something you become. Be the man who doesn't just walk into the room, be the man who changes it. Now go. Live like you already are him.